Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that, honestly, years after the initial shock, it just continues to fascinate people and, grab new headlines, the Jeffrey Epstein saga. Yeah, the questions seem to just keep evolving, don't they? So for this deep dive, our mission really is to try and cut through some of the noise. We want to understand the recent political and legal debates around releasing these so-called Epstein files and the grand jury testimony. We'll explore that really intense public demand for transparency, look at the legal realities, the government secrecy side of things, and, of course, the political fallout for, figures right at the top. To do this, we've pulled together a pretty comprehensive stack of recent reports, some legal analyses, timelines from sources like PBS NewsHour, Newsweek, Forbes, Al Jazeera, Fox News, and the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. So a good mix. And the immediate trigger for a lot of this renewed focus, well, there was that Wall Street Journal report alleging a, quote, salacious birthday letter from Donald Trump back when he was a private citizen to Epstein in 2003. An allegation Trump strongly denies, calls it fake AI, but that report landed right before Trump's recent directive to release grand jury testimony.
Right. And what's really compelling about this whole situation, is how the Epstein case has become so much more than just the awful details of his crimes. It's become this powerful example of a fundamental clash, really. You've got these centuries-old legal traditions built on secrecy, running right up against this, almost insatiable public demand for total transparency. And that demand, it's amplified like crazy by social media and, let's face it, very charged political discourse. We'll trace a bit of the history of President Trump's association with Epstein and, kind of fascinatingly, how the very theories he himself once amplified are now creating this really complex political challenge for him.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this deep dive should help you grasp why getting certain information on Epstein is so tricky, what you can realistically expect from any document releases, and how this whole ongoing saga is really shaking up the political landscape.
Okay, so this intense public pressure for transparency.
Yeah.
But like you said, the legal system has these really deep roots in secrecy. Let's start there. One of the core issues seems to be the grand jury system itself. It's an old concept, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly old.
Yeah.
We're talking about proceedings held in secret since, the 1600s. It's a tradition we adopted directly from England. And our sources, like the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, they really emphasize there is no First Amendment right for the public to access grand jury proceedings. It's just not there.
Right. So what are the main reasons? Why keep it so secret?
Well, that's a really vital point. The Supreme Court actually laid out several key reasons back in, I think it was 1979. Think of it like this. First, it's meant to encourage witnesses to come forward without, fearing retaliation. They need to feel safe. Second, it helps make sure those witnesses testify fully and frankly because they aren't facing pressure or threats from outside. Third, it helps stop potential defendants from running off or trying to, influence the grand jurors before they decide on an indictment. And finally, and this is crucial, it protects people who might be investigated, maybe even accused, but are ultimately not indicted. It shields them from public shame.
These are all seen as absolutely vital for the integrity of the whole investigation process and, frankly, for fairness to individuals.
So it's clear that secrecy is really deeply baked into the system, and for what are argued as, very solid reasons. But then you get a case like Epstein's where the public demand for transparency is just off the charts. And what's really striking, as PBS NewsHour points out, is how strong this demand is coming from conservative voices, from President Trump's base. It feels almost like a boomerang effect because President Trump has this history of stoking dark theories, embracing some QAnon-tinged ideas, casting himself as the only one fighting the deep state.
Exactly.
And that very approach, maybe unintentionally, seems to have created this significant political headache for him now.
Precisely. The very community he helps kind of energize is now putting intense pressure on him to release all the Epstein documents. Remember when the Justice Department and FBI recently stated pretty clearly that, no, there wasn't an Epstein client list of elites, and reaffirmed his death was a suicide? The online reaction from his supporters was immediate and very loud. Many called him out of touch, demanded more transparency.
Yeah, I saw some of that.
You have figures like retired LT General Michael Flynn publicly urging Trump to address the Epstein affair, warning him it's not going away. Steve Bannon, the influential right-wing podcaster, even estimated Trump could lose maybe 10% of the man-gay movement. This isn't handled right.
Wow, 10%.
It just shows you the power of information, or maybe the perception of withheld information on political loyalties. It's potent.
And it gets even more tangled when you factor in President Trump's own history with Epstein. I mean, they were reportedly friends going way back, late 80s. Trump himself, in a 2002 New York Magazine piece, called Epstein a terrific guy who, quote, likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
Right. That quote is often brought up.
And there are photos of them together at Mar-a-Lago. Flight logs shown during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial indicated Trump flew on Epstein's jet 7 times between 93 and 97. Now, their association reportedly ended, around 2004 over some real estate deal. But still, it's not just a passing acquaintance. There's a significant history there.
Absolutely. Which, of course, just fuels the public's intense scrutiny and the persistent questions.
No doubt.
And that brings us right back to that recent Wall Street Journal report about the alleged salacious birthday letter from Trump to Epstein in 2003. This specific claim, which again Trump strongly denies, calling it fake, it came out right before his directive to Attorney General Pam Bondi.
The directive to seek release of any and all pertinent grand jury testimony.
Exactly. Describing the whole thing as a scam perpetuated by the Democrats. But this move, asking only for grand jury testimony, it's been met with quite a bit of skepticism.
Considerable skepticism, sounds right. Critics, legal experts, Democrats. They're suggesting this focus only on grand jury testimony might be a bit of a tactical move. A red herring, maybe. A smoke show. Their argument is, look, maybe this is to distract from other stuff, potentially more explosive materials that haven't been released. Things like, I don't know, witness interview notes, videos, photos from inside Epstein's homes, financial records, maybe more complete flight logs.
Right, things that wouldn't necessarily be part of the grand jury record itself.
And our sources mention that former federal prosecutors generally agree. Grand jury testimony is usually just a small sliver or a small fraction of all the evidence collected in a big, complex investigation like this.
That's a really crucial point for setting expectations about what these releases might actually contain, or importantly, what they won't contain. Legal experts pretty much across the board caution that even if grand jury documents are released, they're very unlikely to be the smoking gun list of names that many conspiracy theorists seem to expect.
Right, not the big reveal some are hoping for.
No. They're narrowly focused. Their purpose was determining probable cause to indict individuals like Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. They weren't designed to expose some vast network of powerful figures. And critically, they will almost certainly be heavily redacted to protect the privacy of victims.
That's essential, of course.
Absolutely. Jessica Levinson, a law professor, made a good point. She noted grand jury testimony is more likely to reveal that, quote, people knew about this really problematic conduct for a long time and not much was done to stop Jeffrey Epstein. That's a very different kind of insight than finding a big client list. It's more about who knew what and when, specifically related to the charges brought.
And this ties right back to that fundamental clash we talked about at the start. The Justice Department, the FBI, they've consistently said their investigations concluded Epstein didn't have a specific client list of elites and that his death was, in fact, a suicide.
Direct contradictions to many popular theories.
Exactly. But for many people, especially those who've been following these theories for years, that official explanation just isn't cutting it. It's not satisfying. It really seems the expectation, the hope maybe, for some comprehensive smoking gun list just crashes head-on into the much narrower, more technical reality of what grand jury testimony actually is.
It really does. It's a powerful example of how once certain narratives get out there and take hold, it's incredibly hard to, put that genie back in the bottle, so to speak. The huge public interest, which has been fueled by years and years of speculation, it's created this almost impossible demand for a kind of truth that our legal mechanisms, frankly, just aren't designed to deliver in that specific way.
So, okay, let's try and wrap our heads around this. What does it all mean for us trying to understand this? We've definitely seen this major tension. On one side, the public's intense demand for total transparency, especially, as we noted, from conservative voices and Trump's base. And on the other side, these deeply ingrained legal principles of grand jury secrecy and that expectation of finding some smoking gun client list keeps clashing with the limited technical nature of what grand jury testimony usually involves. So maybe we can recap the key takeaways from this deep dive. First, gotta remember, grand jury proceedings are secret by design. It's a tradition going back centuries, meant to protect witnesses, stop defendants from fleeing, and shield the unindicted. There's no First Amendment right to access them.
Foundational point.
Second, legal experts all seem to agree. Even if released, these documents are likely narrow, focused on probable cause for Epstein and Maxwell, not exposing a huge network, and expect heavy redactions, especially to protect victims.
Crucial caveat.
Third, President Trump's past rhetoric, embracing certain theories and promising transparency. Well, it's led to some serious blowback from his own base now that the DOJ says no client list exists. His attempts to maybe downplay it or steer supporters away haven't gone over well, with figures like Flynn and Bannon warning him about losing support. There's even talk of internal infighting in his administration, maybe tension between Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino over this.
Yeah, the politics are messy.
Fourth, there's that red herring argument from critics that focusing only on grand jury testimony might be a way to distract from other potentially revealing materials, like computer files, FBI docs, videos, flight logs, that could perhaps be released without needing court approval.
A definite point of contention.
And finally, fifth, just to reiterate, the official stance from the DOJ and FBI remains that they found no evidence of an Epstein client list and ruled his death a suicide. This directly contradicts many widely held conspiracy theories.
Right. Which leads us to the bigger picture here. If you connect all these dots, the Epstein case isn't just some legal puzzle box. It's a really powerful illustration of how information itself, and maybe more importantly, the perception of who controls that information, can fundamentally shape political dynamics. The intense public interest fed by years of speculation, it's created this almost impossible hunger for a truth that the legal system isn't really set up to satisfy completely. And the challenge for leaders, as we're seeing, is that once you start peddling certain conspiracy theories, it's really hard to regain control of the narrative. It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle.
That makes sense.
So this really raises an important question, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. In this age of instant information, widespread distrust, how do we, as a society, find the right balance? How do we balance that fundamental need for judicial secrecy, which serves real purposes, with the equally powerful, understandable demand for transparency, especially when the lines between legitimate questions and, frankly, conspiratorial thinking get so blurry? What does it actually take for trust to be earned or lost? Not just trust in individuals, but trust in the very institutions, like the courts, that are designed to serve justice. It's a tough one.